On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Venkat Chittor. He is CTO at Marathon Health, and we're going to be talking about digital transformation through AI. And we're going to be talking about some of the rapid changes that Venkat's having to deal with and he's observing, and some of the change management, shiny object syndrome, we'll ask him about that, and also some of the use cases that are functional, that are viable, opportunities that he is seeing out for his team, and also how about a strong business plan? I think sometimes we forget that's the cornerstone to all technology. And also, we're going to talk about value. How do you measure it? How do we actually understand that we're delivering it? We'll try to get as much as in here as we can with you, Venkat. I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Glad to be here, Amir.
Absolutely. All right. Before we start, Marathon Health, tell us a quick, high level what you guys do.
Marathon Health, we are what we call an employer-sponsored advanced primary care organization. So our primary goal is, or mission is, to transform health for millions of patients, one patient at a time. And we do that with both in-person offerings through our health centers or virtual care as well. And we have over 700 health centers located across the nation. And we have primary care and then ancillary services like MSK programs, mental health, behavioral health, health coaching. And our clients buy us because they want to figure out how to make their employees, spouses, and dependents healthy. And by doing that and driving behavioral change, they can save costs. So that's the primary idea.
Absolutely. All right. So this episode, we're going to be talking about digital transformation, right? Leveraging AI. Digital transformation, I think the name has been going on now. I joke half jokingly that we've been hearing about digital transformation now for, 25 years, and we're still under transformation, which I love. That means to no end, technology will always give us value. But I guess in this case, when we're thinking about where a company sits in regards to this notion of digital transformation, and in particular AI, I kind of view there's a maturity curve along digital transformation. AI sits in a very interesting spot. I guess give us your assessment of when you look at a company and you look at their maturity through digital transformation, AI, do they map together? Are they two separate maps? Are they converging to one? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, you have to think about AI as an enabler. And you also have to think about not just as an AI strategy, what is our business strategy and how are we going to use AI strategy as an enablement of that business strategy. So that's how at least we think at Marathon Health. And so, yes, you got to make sure that what's your North Star from a business point of view, and what are the clear outcomes you want to deliver over what period of time, and how do you then bring a great enabling technologies like AI. Now, AI speeds up things much faster than other digital transformation like cloud back in 2007 or the internet back in 2000. It's just the speed of every time technology has changed significantly. The businesses has been able to drive better efficiency, better outcomes. Now AI is actually enabling that, but without a solid business strategy, AI strategy is not useful.
Interesting. I guess when you're thinking about that statement there, when we're talking about trying to find opportunities to leverage AI that potentially fit with bigger plans, right? I think a lot of times what we're seeing is companies that have tried to go through the exercise of finding AI projects just to develop muscle memory. I've heard that a lot, just to be able to test the waters. There's a lot of different things that have happened in these last 2 years. And obviously that, I keep quoting this famous MIT study that lots of projects fail. And I think I don't know if it's 100% fair, because I think going into it, we knew we were testing projects. But anyways, when you think about AI and where initiatives sit and potentially weaving that back into the bigger scale vision for technology for a company, is this notion of needing to develop muscle memory, is this notion of, hey, we just need to dabble in it, is this the right first step, or is that just, hey, we we don't have a better idea and we got to start someplace? I mean, maybe a mix of both. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a mix of both, where people are trying to figure out how do I first start with individual personal productivity, right? Gen AIs have started improving personal productivities. How many of us have gone from Google to ChatGPT or other use cases? So I think step one is like, how do we get into personal productivity? Then step two is, what are the low-hanging fruit where AI is replacing tasks, right? Tasks that it's pretty mundane and repeatable. What are the key things that we can do with AI on those? And then eventually, I think to the level of like, when it comes to automation of cognition, that's a pretty high level. We are not there yet. And so it'll be there someday. I'm not sure when, but I know it'll be there. But we are not ready to, at least in the healthcare side, we're not ready to where we want to digitize cognition level. And so that's still going to be something that we have to wait and see how AI models, AI technologies start progressing. But at this point, I would say it's what are the personal productivity to what are the admin type tasks, basically driving more efficiency, and then reducing, at least in the world of healthcare, there is a lot of admin work that providers have to do. And how can we reduce that administrative burden for providers or clinicians in general? That includes medical assistants or nurse practitioners, you name it. And so trying to figure that out with AI is where most organizations are. And I think that's the journey I see most companies taking on. Is like, what are slow but incremental steps they can take to use AI to automate and improve efficiency for their people and still have a lot of cognition being done by humans at this point.
Absolutely. When you look at that, and I guess talking about those use cases, I guess a lot of most technology that we're developing are business requirements we're solving. I guess, is this one of the few times where end users are potentially talking about the solution, at least the solution in mind? Because if let's say you're a .NET shop before, or you were a Python shop, that you wouldn't have a stakeholder go, "Hey, that new thing in .NET, man, how are you guys thinking about how to use that?" That's not something that would have ever come out. But hey, have you seen this something about AI? I mean, it's in a news blurb every day. Like, you can't escape it. I mean, is that something that you're feeling? Is that something that comes up in stakeholder conversations?
It does a lot because, earlier technology like .NET, Python, were a little bit of black box to end users, versus now people can get on ChatGPT or Copilot and quickly answer whatever their needs are, and then those Gen AI tools automatically build context based on the types of questions you have asked. So now people think like, I have a conversation with one of our internal users who said, "I've created an agent for me," but they have not created an agent. It's just that they're having a lot of chat conversations. And now the AI is better because the AI is connecting the dots automatically for them. And it's become like a personal research assistant for them. And so they are definitely figuring out like, okay, if I can do this, of course, then they're also reading a lot and they are getting inundated with AI capabilities around agentic AI and so on. So they go, how can I adopt this quickly and do my job much faster? And so the push to the technology teams is much higher to adopt AI technologies than the push has been for cloud or for other technologies, because people didn't understand that or use that much as they're using Gen AI tools right now. So
yeah, and I think that's interesting. I've and this is a bit out of context, but I was actually listening to somebody talk about how easy it is to use these tools to create an app. And I was like, okay, but if you're creating an app because you're curious about what something could do and you have no experience in software engineering, okay, fine, it stands it up. But to get this out, to have other people use it, to think about scalability, security, all these other things, it's not just, hey, let's just talk to some, some model and have it go create the app and think that I can take this app. And I jokingly was thinking, oh my God, like it's actually people are going to start questioning, hey, why does it take you so long to even create, this feature function? We could talk to whatever tool I want and it could have it done for me in like a day. And you're like, well, there's a lot missing.
That is right. I think that is the big one where I think it creates some false positives for some of the business users where they think, oh, I can quickly create this without understanding the nuance of how do we develop scalability, reliability, observability into the system, into an AI system to scale it up, to secure it, and what guardrails do we need to provide, because AI has there are concerns around AI, around how it interprets data, etc. So I think, again, this is where it depends on the use case in terms of how you use it and for what usage you're using it for. And so we, as an IT, our technology companies have to figure out how to better explain those to their business counterparts. So,
absolutely. I guess as you're kind of going through this journey as well, and you're looking at speaking to your stakeholders and ensuring that the business problem is very well formed. And I guess in my view, AI is really business driven more than even the technology solution, because we're potentially changing processes. We're changing workflows, not just in the back end of how somebody clicks, but potentially how somebody does some of their job. So that strength of that understanding in the business side, I think, is becoming even more critical. When you think about that, and you think about your stakeholders and ensuring that they fully understand the business requirements and the business plan they have to put in place to actually get an AI solution, how do those conversations look? What are you looking for to make sure that everyone's on the same page with some of that?
Well, a couple of things. One, how do you start thinking about experiments, right? With AI, you got to start thinking about how do we start small and iterate compared to, going and building full-blown projects. And then how are you going to pilot those? And then you got to think through what is the success criteria for the pilot first. And then as we go through the pilot, then you decide what is the success criteria for a robust, scalable system. So you got to define success metrics, or we are defining at least success metric as different level to see, do we want to do this pilot? But when we decide those are partly, it's a part art, part science, meaning, we can identify some success metrics, but then there is also a little bit of gut feel, like, if we try it, let's figure out, but then we are keeping it really small in the pilot. The second one is, now that we have done the pilot, then we have some experience, then we decide, how long do we want to do the pilot, and then learn from the pilot and now start defining, okay, what would be the success metrics for V1? So the pilot would be, think of pilots like a V.5 maybe, and a full version 1, what will be the success for version 1 and what will be the success for version 2, and start scaling about how to best scale the AI solutions. Included that, and will be like, what guardrails do we need to have during even a pilot phase? What guardrails do we have as we scale it? That's what our AI governance team is building, and that's in my mind, make sure that you have a solid AI governance in place before you even start some of the pilots, because we don't want people to start piloting and then start submitting PHI data or confidential data into Gen AI type tools or in general AI tools that are not controlled. So that's critically important. So having a AI governance first, starting a pilot, looking at KPIs for pilot, and then figuring out how do we scale that, and KPIs and outcomes for the scaled version as well.
Absolutely. And when you're looking at projects and you're talking about value, I mean, there's a cost that goes into implementing any project. AI itself might have different costs because there's maybe some learning, some new opportunities to grow. But when you look at that and you're trying to understand how the cost and the value balance, and I guess this is tricky because for a lot of this, if we're talking about human in the loop, or we're talking an assistant to help somebody do their job better, how do we go about trying to actually quantify that? I don't know how far people have gotten, but I just kind of curious your thoughts of, if we're looking at, hey, somebody has this tool that's helping them do their job better, we have to then discern between how much the tool is helping this person potentially, and what are they doing with the other time? That's the other question I always have is, okay, they did their job 3 hours faster. Did they use that 3 hours to do something that had some kind of net positive ROI?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Part of the way we have been thinking about is, at least in the pilots, is how long does it take for a provider to complete their charting, and how much time does it reduce on the charting, and the accuracy of the charting, so that they are not spending admin time. And you can look at how much admin time a group that is using AI versus another, if you're doing an A/B type testing, how do you use one group using AI-based technologies to do chart closures or chart audits, and then another group that is doing it manually. So there we have seen efficiencies, or we are seeing efficiencies that we are calculating, and that's less what we call, from a provider point of view, less pajama time and more time on caring with the patients and following up with the patients. And we are actually seeing those and measuring those, and that helps for the provider to say, look, I went to medical school or training, I got trained because I want to care for patients, and am I spending more time in the patient care and less time on the admin work? And that's a big use case. The other one is we are in the pilot for looking at how many call deflections did we have by using AI, whether it's call deflections or service desk deflections. And that has helped in terms of our teams to focus more on more high touch tickets or high touch responses, versus you can automatically deflect with self-services, so using AI technologies. And so we are seeing big efficiency gains for at least teams like IT service desk. And so we know we are able to scale our support models without adding additional resources. So one way to measure that is okay, how many resources we didn't have to add while keeping our existing resource base and supporting more internal users. So that's another use case we have. That's how we measure value.
Absolutely. I guess when you're looking at your roadmap, vendors are starting to try to build out agents. They're trying to have agents built into the software you're using so that you don't have to potentially go build them yourself. You can potentially go build them yourself. I mean, there's a lot of options out there how you approach this. I asked this question maybe a year ago, and no one agreed with me, and that's okay. But I did ask, in a lot of ways, technology teams, especially if they're not at one of the large or just at a startup or a tech company that's whole job is to innovate a product group, right? That, using technology for your company is different. Is the notion of waiting to let AI solutions mature so that the agents that are being developed for all these software packages are more mature, they can actually be configured to do more robust things? Is that notion of waiting, is that even something a CTO can consider? Or is it a case where while you wait for, let's say, something to become more mature, somebody else is potentially learning how to do something? Obviously, they're going to stumble maybe through that, but there is learnings they're gaining.
Yeah, we live in a world of how do we get things done faster, quicker now, so I don't know, at least I would wait for things to mature a lot, because we don't know how long it's going to take to mature and how mature it's going to get between where we are now versus waiting for X months. So it's always going to be what can we experiment quickly? What did we learn from those experiments? And, the models are getting refined because, the technology is changing fast, and the data that they're getting fed to improve the models are changing fast. So you can go from one LLM to another LLM really easily today. So for those reasons, or you can even use multiple large language models to figure out how to compare and contrast. So everyone wants to move fast. There is benefits in moving fast rather than waiting for models to mature. So, and it's easy to try different models. Yes, there is some cost, but it's not that big a deal to try out a few things. And so I would prefer, and I know we prefer, to start experimenting, start piloting and learning from it and refining it as we go rather than wait for a mature model. So
that 100% is fair. And I do think, depending on, again, your maturity curve of your organization, where you sit, I think actually if you have the capabilities and you need to learn how to, use these tools, build these agents, what you need to do to address any shortcomings within your technology stack, I think it does make sense. I think a lot of people are trying to also use this as a leapfrog of things maybe they hadn't done. And, I always joke, it's data is very challenging in of itself, let alone you apply an advanced technology on top of it. And I guess, from your perspective, you guys are driving down the AI path as well. In terms of learnings, maybe something that you, looking back, go, well, if somebody's on the path right now, something to think about or something to consider, given you've seen some of what works, what hasn't worked. Is there a piece of advice you have for that group of people?
Yeah, two parts to that question. One is get real clear in terms of what is the outcome you're going to drive and how would you clearly measure that outcome, because everybody measures ROI, but let's get very clear in the outcome and how do you measure the outcome in the actual metrics. Get clear on that one. The second one would be how do you make sure, if you're going to use AI, what is the underlying data and how accurate the underlying data is, and then things that you need to improve on the quality of the data, the recency of the data, and potential biases of the data that you might know, and be aware of those. Because that's where we run some experiments and we found out, we ran this data was segmented for this kind of population, so it didn't really help us with the broader population. So I think those are two, defining the end goal of that experimentation or pilot, and then making sure that if you're banking on existing systems, especially both data and data integration that needs to be fed into the AI. And last, they don't take, there's so many vendors out there saying they can do a lot. Don't get fooled by the marketing. Sorry. Make sure you validate, in a thorough sense, that are applicable for your use cases specific, not just for your industry, but also for use cases within your industry is really important. So.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Venkat, I wanted to thank you for coming on the show, for sharing with us. If somebody does have a follow-up question for you, is there a good way of touching base with you?
Yeah, definitely. People can reach out to my LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the easiest way, and my LinkedIn profile has my email as well for people who want to reach me. Thank you again, Amber, for the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Absolutely. All right. That's it for the episode. Be back again, different guest, different topic. Until then, two things. One, obviously we talked about digital transformation through AI. We talked a little bit about driving value, delivering value, that muscle memory, where to start. Venkat had some great advice if you're on that journey and things to look out for, how to deal with stakeholders. We covered a lot of ground. So share this episode with somebody else who would benefit from it as well. Also, subscribe, comment. Let me know how the show is going for you. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.